The call came at midnight. My sister's voice was barely a whisper. She pushed me down the stairs, Sarah. My own mother-in-law said I don't belong in their world. I grabbed my keys without a second thought. This is a story based on real events. Hello, my friends. Take a moment from your day. I want to share a story that will change how you see family bonds. Write in the comments where you're listening from. We wish you pleasant listening. November winds cut through everything that night. Rain hammered against my windows as I drove through the darkness toward Mercy General Hospital. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. All I could think about was my younger sister, Harper, lying in some emergency room, hurt and alone. I'm Zoe Deutsch, 51 years old, a high school art teacher, divorced, and the older sister who always promised to protect Harper no matter what. We grew up in San Francisco's Chinatown, daughters of immigrants who worked 16-hour days at their tiny restaurant. Our mother taught us that family is everything, that we stand together against the world. I thought I had taught Harper well. The hospital parking lot was nearly empty at this hour. I ran through the rain, not bothering with an umbrella. Inside, the fluorescent lights were harsh and cold. A tired nurse directed me to the third floor, trauma unit. Harper was in room 304. When I pushed open the door, my breath caught in my throat. My beautiful little sister, the one who always smiled no matter what, lay in that hospital bed looking like a stranger. Her left arm was in a cast from wrist to elbow. Dark bruises covered the right side of her face. A bandage wrapped around her forehead. Her eyes were closed, but I could see tears on her cheeks. "Harper," I whispered, pulling a chair close to her bed. Her eyes opened slowly. One was swollen nearly shut. When she saw me, her face crumpled and she started crying, really crying, the kind of sobs that come from deep in your soul. "Sarah," she managed between gasps. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to bother you." "Bother me?" I took her good hand gently. "Harper, what happened? Who did this to you?" She looked away, shame washing over her features. "Victoria Ashford. My mother-in-law. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach." "What?" She invited me to her estate. Harper's voice was barely audible. Said she wanted to show me the family photo albums, that we should get to know each other better. Daniel was away on a business trip to Tokyo. I thought maybe she was finally accepting me. I knew Victoria Ashford by reputation only. The matriarch of the Ashford family, one of the wealthiest families in California. Old money, influential connections, the kind of woman who appeared in society pages wearing diamonds and fake smiles. When Harper married Daniel Ashford 2 years ago, Victoria had made her disapproval crystal clear, though always with careful politeness in public. "We were in the upstairs hallway," Harper continued, her voice shaking. She started asking questions about my background, my family. Then she said it. "You people don't understand our ways. You're diluting centuries of heritage with your immigrant blood." My jaw clenched. The casual racism, delivered with that upper-class accent, made it somehow worse. "I tried to leave," Harper said. "Told her I wouldn't listen to that kind of talk. She got angry, really angry. Started yelling about how I trapped her son, how I was after the family money. I turned to walk away, and she pushed me. Hard. Down the main staircase, 15 steps of marble and oak. "My God," I breathed. I remember falling, trying to grab the railing. I hit my head on the 4th step, broke my arm on the landing. When I could finally focus, she was standing at the top of the stairs, not even checking if I was alive. She just said, "You should be more careful on unfamiliar stairs," and walked away. "The staff?" I asked. "Didn't anyone see?" Harper shook her head painfully. It was her weekly alone day at the house. She gives all the staff Thursdays off. I think she planned it. A nurse came in to check vitals and adjust Harper's 4. After she left, I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "Did you call the police?" Harper's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I called Daniel first. He was my husband. I thought he'd come home immediately, that he'd protect me. Do you know what he said?" I waited, dreading the answer. He said his mother would never do such a thing. That I must have fallen, maybe had too much wine at lunch. He asked if I was trying to embarrass the family. Then he said he'd be home when his meetings were finished, maybe in 3 days. I felt rage like I'd never known before. My sister, lying broken in a hospital bed, and her own husband didn't believe her. Didn't even care enough to come home. "Harper, listen to me carefully," I said, keeping my voice steady though anger burned through me. "Did the doctors document everything? Take photos of your injuries?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. They asked if I wanted to file a police report. I said I'd think about it. And what do you want to do? Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm scared, Sarah. The Ashfords have lawyers, connections everywhere. Victoria sits on the board of half the charities in this city. Who's going to believe me over her? And Daniel, her voice broke. He's already chosen his side. I squeezed her hand gently. Then we make our own side stronger. But first, you need to rest. Let me handle this. What are you going to do? Fear flickered in her eyes. What our parents would have done, I said firmly. Protect family, no matter the cost. I stayed with Harper until she fell asleep, exhausted by pain and medication. Then I stepped into the hallway and made a call I hadn't made in over a year. Sarah, my cousin James answered on the second ring despite the late hour. What's wrong? James Chin was 10 years younger than me, but he'd always been the problem solver in our family. After serving as a Marine, he'd come home and started a private security consulting firm. Smart, resourceful, and loyal to the core. I need your help, I said. Harper's in the hospital. Her mother-in-law tried to kill her. Silence. Then, I'm 40 minutes away. Text me the details. I hung up and pulled out my phone, typing out everything Harper had told me. As I hit send, a thought struck me. I needed to see the scene, the staircase where Harper fell. I needed evidence before Victoria could clean up or create her own story. But how could I get into the Ashford estate? The answer came from an unexpected place. As I stood there thinking, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Miss Chun, this is Lucy Phillips. I work for the Ashford family. I saw what happened to your sister. We need to talk. Alone. There's a diner on Mission Street, Rosie's place. I'll be there at 6 a.m. I stared at the message. Could be a trap. Could be Victoria trying to manipulate the situation. But something in my gut said this was real. I texted back a single word. Yes. James arrived at the hospital at 2 in the morning, his hair still wet from a shower, wearing jeans and a black jacket. He'd always moved like a soldier, economical and alert. When he saw Harper through the door window, his jaw tightened. Tell me everything, he said. We sat in the hospital cafeteria, empty except for a janitor mopping in the corner. I laid out the whole story. James listened without interrupting, his dark eyes growing harder with each detail. The husband didn't come home, he asked when I finished. Daniel's in Tokyo. Says he'll be back when his meetings are done. James shook his head in disgust. And the mother-in-law has Thursday alone at the house. That's premeditation, Sarah. She planned this. I know. I showed him the text from Lucy Phillips. What do you think? He studied the message carefully. Could be genuine. Household staff see everything. If she witnessed it, she might feel guilty. Or, he paused. She might be setting you up. The Ashfords could be getting ahead of the story. So what do we do? You meet her, James said. But I'll be there too. Different table, watching everything. If it smells wrong, I get you out. And then, James leaned forward. Then we build a case that even the Ashfords' lawyers can't touch. Medical records, witness testimony, evidence from the scene. And we find out why Victoria did this. Rich people don't risk assault charges over simple prejudice. There's more to this story. I nodded. He was right. Victoria Ashford was calculated, controlled. Harper said she planned to have the staff gone. That meant she thought about consequences, weighed risks. So why take such a chance? There's something else, I said quietly. Harper mentioned Victoria kept talking about family heritage and the Ashford legacy. Maybe there's something about Harper specifically that threatened her. Like what? I thought back to Harper's wedding 2 years ago. Victoria had attended, played the gracious mother-in-law for the cameras, but I remembered her face during the ceremony. Not just disapproval. Something colder. More calculating. I don't know yet, I admitted. But we're going to find out. I left James at the hospital to watch over Harper and drove through the empty pre-dawn streets to my apartment. I needed to prepare for the meeting with Lucy Phillips, needed to think clearly. My apartment was small, cluttered with art supplies and half-finished paintings. I'd bought it with my divorce settlement 5 years ago, choosing independence over comfort. Now I was grateful for that choice. No one to answer to, no one to hold me back from doing what needed to be done. I made strong coffee and sat at my kitchen table, thinking about Victoria Ashford. I pulled out my laptop and started searching. Victoria Ashford, née Victoria Montgomery, came from old East Coast money. Married William Ashford 35 years ago, uniting 2 wealthy families. One son, Daniel. Active in multiple charities, especially the Ashford Foundation for Children's Education, which distributed millions annually. I kept digging, looking for anything unusual. Then I found it. An article from 8 years ago, buried in a Business Journal archive. Ashford Foundation under investigation for accounting irregularities. The article was brief. Questions had been raised about how the foundation's money was being allocated. But the investigation had apparently closed with no findings. I searched for follow-up articles but found nothing. Odd, for something that should have been a major scandal. I made a note to look deeper into the foundation. If Victoria was hiding financial crimes, that could explain her desperation to control the family image, to keep everything perfect on the surface. My phone alarm went off at 5:30. Time to meet Lucy Phillips. Rosie's place was a classic San Francisco diner, chrome and vinyl booths, the smell of coffee and bacon grease. At 6 in the morning, it was half full with early workers and night shift people winding down. I spotted Lucy immediately. A woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled back, wearing a simple coat over what looked like a housekeeper's uniform. She sat in a corner booth, hands wrapped around a coffee cup, looking nervous. I slid into the seat across from her. "Ms. Phillips." She looked up, studied my face. "You look like her. Your sister. We get that a lot." I ordered coffee from the waitress, then turned back to Lucy. "Thank you for reaching out." "I shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I've worked for the Ashfords for 22 years. But what I saw yesterday..." She trailed off, shaking her head. "Tell me what happened." Lucy took a shaky breath. "Mrs. Ashford told us all to take Thursday off, like she does once a month. Said she wanted private time. But I forgot my phone charger, came back around 2 in the afternoon. I parked around back, came in through the service entrance quietly, didn't want to disturb her." She paused to sip her coffee. I heard voices upstairs, angry voices. Mrs. Ashford was shouting. I'd never heard her shout before. She's always so controlled. I started to leave, but then I heard your sister cry out. I looked up the stairs just in time to see. "See what?" I pressed gently. Mrs. Ashford pushing her. Both hands on Harper's shoulders hard. Harper tried to grab the railing, but missed. She fell all the way down. I heard the crack when her arm hit the landing. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Ashford just stood there at the top, watching her. Then she saw me. My heart was pounding. What did she do? Came down the stairs like nothing happened. Told me I was mistaken, that Harper had tripped. Then she said if I valued my job, my pension, my daughter's college scholarship that the Ashfords had generously provided, I would forget what I thought I saw. I felt a chill run through me. Victoria had threatened this woman's entire livelihood, her daughter's future, all to cover up what she'd done. "But you're here anyway," I said softly. "Why?" Lucy looked down at her hands. "My daughter, Jenny, she's studying to be a social worker. Wants to help people. If she knew I stayed silent while someone got hurt, especially to protect my job, I couldn't live with that. And I couldn't let Mrs. Ashford get away with it. Would you testify to what you saw?" She hesitated, fear crossing her face. Then she nodded. "Yes. If it comes to that, yes. But there's more you need to know." I leaned forward. "Tell me, this wasn't the first time Mrs. Ashford hurt someone." Lucy's voice dropped even lower. 3 years ago, before Harper came into the picture, Mr. Daniel was dating another woman. Keiko Tanaka, a journalist. Beautiful, smart. Mrs. Ashford hated her too. What happened? Keiko broke up with Daniel suddenly. Moved to New York the next week. But before she left, I saw her one last time. She came to collect some things. She had a black eye, bruises on her arms. She saw me staring and said she'd been in a car accident. My blood ran cold. "You don't think it was an accident?" Lucy shook her head. 2 days before Keiko left, I was cleaning the study. Mrs. Ashford was on the phone. I heard her say, "The problem has been handled. She won't be an issue anymore." When I came out, she was smiling. Did Keiko ever file a report? I don't know. She disappeared from Daniel's life completely. I tried to find her online a few months later, but she deleted all her social media. I made a mental note. James could track down Keiko Tanaka. If there was a pattern of Victoria attacking women who got close to her son, that would strengthen Harper's case considerably. "Is there anything else?" I asked. Lucy reached into her purse and pulled out a small USB drive. Security footage. The Ashford estate has cameras everywhere. Mrs. Ashford doesn't know I have access to the system. My late husband installed it, taught me how it works before he passed. She slid the drive across the table. Thursday afternoon, 2:15 p.m. The main hallway, second floor. It's all there. I stared at the tiny device. Video evidence. This changed everything. Lucy, I said carefully, this is incredibly brave of you. But you understand what you're risking. I do. Her voice was steady now. But I'm 60 years old, Miss Chun. My daughter's almost done with college. I have savings. The Ashfords don't own me, not really. And what I saw, that was attempted murder. I can't stay silent about murder. I took the USB drive, feeling its weight in my palm like it was made of gold instead of plastic. Thank you. Truly. Help your sister, Lucy said, standing up. And be careful. Victoria Ashford is more dangerous than people think. I watched her leave through the diner's front door, disappearing into the early morning fog. Then I pulled out my phone and texted James. We have video evidence. Meet me at my place in 1 hour. James arrived with breakfast tacos and a laptop with more security features than most government agencies had. We sat at my kitchen table while he loaded the USB drive, running it through virus scanners and verification software first. This is clean, he said after 10 minutes. Whoever made this copy knew what they were doing. He clicked on the single file. The video player opened, showing a timestamp of Thursday, November 16th, 2:13 p.m. The angle was from above, a camera mounted in the ceiling of a grand hallway. Cream-colored walls, expensive paintings, a long runner carpet leading to a magnificent staircase. At 2:14 p.m., two figures entered the frame. Harper, looking small and uncomfortable in slacks and a nice blouse. And Victoria Ashford, tall and imposing in a designer suit, her silver hair perfectly styled. There was no audio, but we could see Victoria talking, gesturing. Harper nodded, looking uncertain. Then Victoria's expression changed. Her face twisted with anger. She pointed at Harper, said something sharp. Harper took a step back, shaking her head. She turned toward the stairs, clearly trying to leave. That's when Victoria moved. She closed the distance in 2 quick steps and shoved Harper hard with both hands. Harper stumbled forward, arms windmilling, trying to catch herself. Her hand grazed the railing but couldn't grip it. She tumbled down the stairs, body bouncing off the marble steps. James and I watched in horrified silence as Harper crumpled at the bottom, motionless. Victoria stood at the top of the stairs, looking down. Even in the grainy video, we could see her expression. Cold. Calculating. Not shocked or horrified like someone who'd just witnessed an accident. She looked like she was checking to see if a job was done. Then another figure rushed into the frame from the left. Lucy Phillips, her hand over her mouth in shock. Victoria descended the stairs slowly. We couldn't hear what she said to Lucy, but we saw the older woman's face change from horror to fear. She nodded several times, backing away. The video ended at 2:17 p.m. Jesus, James breathed. That's not manslaughter. That's not even assault. That's attempted murder, clear as day. I replayed the part where Victoria pushed Harper, watching it in slow motion. The force, the deliberation, the way she positioned herself. No question of intent. We take this to the police, I said. Right now. James held up a hand. We will. But first, let's think this through. Victoria Ashford will have the best lawyers money can buy. They'll argue the video is doctored, that Lucy had a grudge, that Harper provoked her somehow. But this is clear evidence. It's strong evidence, he corrected. But rich people don't go to jail easily, Sarah. We need to be smarter than just handing this over and hoping for justice. I wanted to argue, wanted to storm into the nearest police station and demand Victoria's arrest. But James was right. I'd seen enough through my years of teaching to know the justice system wasn't always just, especially when money was involved. So what do we do? I asked. James thought for a moment. We need to understand why. Victoria risked everything doing this. There has to be a reason beyond simple prejudice. Find the reason, and we find leverage. The Ashford Foundation, I said, remembering my research. There was an investigation 8 years ago, accounting irregularities, but it went nowhere. Let me look into that. James pulled out his phone, typing notes. I have a contact who works in financial forensics. If there's dirty money, he can find it. And I'll talk to Harper, I said. See if there's anything she remembers, anything Victoria said that might explain the motive. I returned to the hospital to find Harper awake, staring out the window at the gray San Francisco morning. She turned when I entered, and I saw something different in her eyes. Not just pain or fear anymore. Anger. Daniel called, she said flatly. From Tokyo. He told me to be more careful on stairs in the future. Said his mother was very upset that I'd been so clumsy in her home. I felt my hands clench into fists. Harper, I need you to tell me everything about your relationship with Victoria. Everything she's ever said to you, especially about the family or money. Harper shifted in the bed, wincing. Why? What's happened? I pulled out my phone and showed her a still frame from the security video. Victoria's hands on Harper's shoulders, the moment before the push. Harper's face went pale. Where did you get this? Someone who saw what happened. Someone brave enough to come forward. I sat down beside her. Harper, this isn't just about racism or not accepting you. Victoria planned this. She sent the staff away, she isolated you, and she deliberately pushed you down those stairs. Why? Harper was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was small. I think I found something I wasn't supposed to see. What do you mean? 2 weeks ago, Daniel asked me to print some documents from his home office. He needed them for a business trip, but his printer was broken. I went to his computer, and I saw he'd left his email open. She paused, fidgeting with the hospital blanket. I know I shouldn't have looked, but there was an email from Victoria with the subject line Foundation Transfer Urgent. I don't know why, but something made me click it. My pulse quickened. What was in it? It was confusing at first. Numbers, account information, company names I didn't recognize. But one line stood out. The usual routing through Chin Educational Services has been flagged. We need to suspend operations until we're clear. Chin Educational Services? I repeated. That's not your family, is it? Harper shook her head. No. I thought it was strange, too, that they'd use a name so close to mine. So I took screenshots on my phone. I was going to ask Daniel about it, but something told me not to. Do you still have them? Yes. She reached for her phone on the bedside table with her good hand. I backed them up to a cloud account that Daniel doesn't know about. She handed me the phone. I scrolled through the screenshots, my teacher's brain trying to make sense of the financial jargon. But even I could see something was wrong. Large sums of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, being transferred from the Ashford Foundation to this Chun Educational Services, then immediately moved again to accounts in the Cayman Islands. Harper, I said slowly, I think Victoria is embezzling from her own charity foundation, and she's using a fake company with a Chinese name to do it. Harper's eyes widened. Why would she do that? To make it look like the money is going to legitimate educational programs for Chinese American students. It provides cover. If anyone questions where the foundation money is going, she can point to Chin Educational Services and say it's for scholarships. But the money doesn't actually go there. Exactly. I thought back to my earlier research. 8 years ago, there was an investigation. It must have gotten too close. She probably created better cover after that, made the scheme harder to trace. Harper grabbed my arm with her good hand. Sarah, the email mentioned my name. It said new wife is Chun, too risky to continue current arrangement. That's why she invited me over. That's why she was asking about my family background. She thought I might discover what she was doing. The pieces were falling into place. Victoria hadn't pushed Harper down the stairs because of racism, though that was certainly part of her worldview. She'd done it because Harper was a liability. A woman with the same last name as her fake company, married to her son, potentially in a position to discover the embezzlement scheme. Can you send me those screenshots? I asked. Harper nodded, her fingers moving quickly on her phone. A moment later, my phone buzzed with the files. What are we going to do? Harper asked, fear creeping back into her voice. We're going to protect you first, I said firmly. Then we're going to make sure Victoria Ashford pays for what she's done. James met me at a small cafe near Chinatown. His contact, Marcus Wu, was already there. A thin man in his 40s with wire-rimmed glasses and the intense focus of someone who spent their days tracking money through digital mazes. I showed him the screenshots on my phone. His eyes lit up like he'd just been given a Christmas present. Oh, this is beautiful, Marcus said, zooming in on the account numbers. Classic shell company operation. Look here, the money moves from the foundation to Chun Educational Services, stays there for exactly 48 hours, then disperses to 3 different offshore accounts. Can you trace where it goes after that? James asked. Already on it. Marcus pulled out his own laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. This kind of setup usually involves multiple layers, but if they've been running it for years, there will be patterns. People get comfortable, make mistakes. We waited while Marcus worked, the cafe's ambient noise washing over us. After 20 minutes, he sat back with a satisfied smile. Got it. The money eventually consolidates in a single account in the Cayman Islands. And guess whose name is on that account? Victoria Ashford, I said. Bingo. Along with someone named Richard Brennan. You know him? I shook my head, but James's expression changed. Richard Brennan is the CFO of Ashford Enterprises. He's been with the company for 15 years. Marcus nodded. They're partners in this. Between the two of them, they've siphoned approximately $12 million from the foundation over the past 8 years. $12 million. Stolen from a charity meant to help children's education. The scale of it was staggering. Can we prove this in court? I asked. Absolutely, Marcus said. I can provide a complete forensic accounting, trace every dollar, show the pattern. This is airtight. James leaned forward. But we need to be smart about how we use this. If we go to the police now, Victoria and Richard will lawyer up immediately. They'll tie this up in court for years. So what do you suggest? I asked. We go directly to William Ashford, James said. Victoria's husband. Show him what his wife has been doing. Give him a choice. Handle this quietly within the family, or we go public and destroy everything. I thought about it. William Ashford was known as a shrewd businessman, someone who'd built the Ashford empire through calculated decisions. If we could convince him that Victoria was a threat to everything he'd built, he might be our best ally. What about Harper? I asked. She's still vulnerable. If Victoria finds out we know about the embezzlement, she needs to disappear for a while, James interrupted. Somewhere Victoria can't reach her. Do you still have that cabin in Tahoe? I nodded. After my divorce, I'd bought a small cabin near Lake Tahoe as a retreat. Remote, peaceful, off most people's radar. Harper goes there, James said decisively. We tell the hospital she's being discharged to a private facility for recovery. No visitors, no information given out. As far as Victoria knows, Harper could be anywhere. And Daniel? Let him think whatever his mother tells him to think, James said with disgust. When this is over, Harper can decide if she wants to stay married to a man who chose his mother over his wife's safety. Moving Harper happened faster than I expected. James had connections from his Marine days, people who knew how to move someone quietly. By that evening, Harper was being discharged into the care of a private medical transport service that would take her to an exclusive recovery facility. In reality, James drove her in an unmarked SUV to my Tahoe cabin, taking a roundabout route to make sure they weren't followed. I stayed behind, maintaining the appearance of normalcy, going to work, living my regular life. But nothing felt normal anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Victoria Ashford, about the coldness in her eyes on that security video, about the $12 million she'd stolen, about the women she'd hurt to protect her secrets. My phone buzzed at midnight. A text from James. Package delivered safely. Beginning next phase tomorrow. Get some rest. I tried to take his advice, but rest wouldn't come. Instead, I got up and went to my small home studio, the spare bedroom I'd converted into an art space. When I couldn't find words, I painted. It had always been my way of processing the world. I pulled out a large canvas and began to work, my hands moving almost without conscious thought. Dark colors, deep blues and blacks, the chaos of falling, of being pushed. But in the corner, a small point of light. Hope. Resistance. Family. I worked until dawn, until my back ached and paint covered my hands. When I stepped back to look at what I'd created, I saw Harper's story. Our story. The story of women who refused to stay down. The next morning, I taught my art classes at the high school like always. My students, mostly juniors and seniors, were working on their semester projects. I walked between the tables, offering guidance, encouragement, the routine comforting in its normalcy. Ms. Chun, one of my students, a quiet girl named Lisa, held up her painting. Is this good enough? I looked at her work, a beautiful watercolor of her grandmother's hands. Lisa, this is more than good enough. It's honest. It tells a truth. That's what makes art powerful. She smiled, gaining confidence. My grandma came from China with nothing. These hands built everything for our family. Then you've honored her, I said softly. Never doubt the power of telling your truth. The words echoed in my mind as I drove home that afternoon. Telling your truth. That's what we were doing with Harper's case. telling the truth that powerful people wanted buried. My phone rang as I pulled into my parking space. An unknown number. Hello. Ms. Chun, this is William Ashford. The voice was deep, cultured, used to being obeyed. I believe we need to speak. In person. Today. My heart started racing. How did you get this number? I have access to many things, Ms. Chin, including some very interesting information about recent activity involving my family's foundation. He paused. I'm at the Fairmont Hotel, Suite 2204. I'll expect you in 1 hour. Come alone, or don't come at all. The line went dead. I sat in my car, hands shaking. This wasn't part of the plan. We were supposed to approach William on our terms, with all our evidence prepared. How did he already know? I called James immediately. William Ashford just contacted me. He knows something. He wants to meet in an hour. Don't go, James said instantly. It could be a trap, or it could be our opening. If he reached out to me, that means he's already questioning Victoria. Maybe we don't need to convince him. Sarah, I'm going, but I need you to track my phone. If I'm not out in 2 hours, you call the police and come get me. James sighed, but I heard resignation in his voice. Text me the location. I'll be in the lobby with backup. Anything feels wrong, you get out of there immediately. Understood. I drove to the Fairmont Hotel, my mind racing with possibilities. The grand lobby was busy with tourists and business travelers. I spotted James near the concierge desk, pretending to read a newspaper. 2 other men I didn't recognize were positioned near the elevators. His backup. I rode the elevator to the 22nd floor, my reflection in the polished brass looking braver than I felt. Suite 2204 was at the end of the hall. I knocked twice. William Ashford opened the door himself. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. But his eyes were tired, and I saw something there I didn't expect. Defeat. Ms. Chun, thank you for coming. He stepped aside. Please. The suite was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But I barely noticed the view. My attention was on the second person in the room. Lucy Phillips sat on the sofa, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She gave me an apologetic look. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Mr. Ashford came to me this morning. He already knew about the security footage. William walked to the windows, his back to us. 22 years, Lucy has worked for my family. 22 years of loyalty. When she came to me this morning, confessing what she'd witnessed and what she'd given you, I knew I had to act quickly. You're not angry with her? I asked carefully. He turned, and I saw genuine sadness in his face. Angry? No. Grateful, perhaps. She had the courage to tell me what my own son wouldn't. That my wife attempted to murder his wife. The bluntness of it hung in the air. You know about the embezzlement too, I said. It wasn't a question. I received an anonymous email this morning with forensic accounting documents. Very thorough work. He looked at me. Your cousin's contact, I presume? Marcus Wu is quite talented. So that's how he knew. Someone had sent him Marcus's findings. But who? William answered my unspoken question. Richard Brennan sent it. My CFO and apparently my wife's partner in theft. He's developed a conscience, it seems, after learning what Victoria did to your sister. He's willing to testify against her in exchange for a reduced sentence. I sat down slowly, processing this. The whole case was unraveling faster than I'd imagined. What do you want from me, Mr. Ashford? He moved to sit in the chair across from me, suddenly looking older than his 60 years. I want to know what you want, Ms. Chun. You have video evidence of attempted murder. You have proof of extensive embezzlement. You could destroy my family, my company, everything I've built over 40 years. Your wife tried to kill my sister, I said quietly. She stole millions from a charity meant to help children. Why should I show her any mercy? You shouldn't, he said simply. Victoria deserves no mercy. But I'm asking for consideration for others who are innocent. My employees, thousands of them. The legitimate charities and programs the Ashford Foundation supports. They'll all suffer if this becomes a public scandal. I studied William Ashford's face. He wasn't lying. There was genuine concern there, not just for his empire, but for the people who depended on it. What are you proposing? I asked. He leaned forward, hands clasped. Victoria will face consequences. I can promise you that, but I'm asking for the chance to handle this privately rather than publicly. Criminal charges, absolutely. Prison time, yes. But without the media circus that would destroy everything else. And Harper? My sister who's lying in a hospital bed right now because your wife pushed her down a marble staircase. Full medical care, paid for life if needed. A substantial settlement, separate from any criminal restitution. And a divorce from my son that protects her completely, along with a restraining order that keeps Victoria away from her forever. Daniel, I said, what about your son? He didn't believe Harper. He chose his mother's side. William's jaw tightened. My son is weak. I take responsibility for that. I was too focused on building the business, let Victoria raise him. That was my mistake. He paused. But he doesn't deserve his mother's crimes to define the rest of his life. He's foolish, not evil. I thought about Harper, about what she'd want. Despite everything, she'd loved Daniel once. Maybe still did, in some small way. Would she want revenge against him too, or just freedom? I need to talk to my sister, I said. This decision isn't mine alone to make. William nodded. Of course. I'm staying here tonight. You have until tomorrow morning. As I stood to leave, Lucy spoke up. Ms. Chun, there's one more thing you should know. I turned to her. When I worked up the courage to come to Mr. Ashford this morning, I told him everything. About the security footage, about what I'd witnessed with Keiko Tanaka, about all of it. She paused. He didn't know about any of it. Victoria had been hiding her violence for years, even from her own husband. William looked at me, and I saw shame in his eyes. I was blind, too focused on business, too trusting. I should have seen what was happening in my own home. That's on me. I left the suite with more questions than answers. In the elevator, I texted James a single word. Safe. He met me in the lobby. Well, William Ashford wants to deal. He knows everything. His CFO turned on Victoria and sent him the evidence. James whistled low. Rats fleeing a sinking ship. What's he offering? I told him as we walked to the parking garage. James listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. It's not a bad deal, he said finally. Harper gets justice, Victoria goes to prison, and the innocent people who depend on the Ashford businesses don't suffer. But it's Harper's choice to make. That's what I told him. We need to drive to Tahoe tonight. I'll get us there, James said. Let's pick up some dinner first. This conversation needs to happen over comfort food. We arrived at the cabin around 9 p.m., carrying bags of Chinese takeout from Harper's favorite restaurant in the city. The cabin was dark except for one light in the front window. When we knocked, Harper opened the door cautiously, then relaxed when she saw us. You didn't need to drive all the way up here, she said, but her eyes were red. She'd been crying. Yeah, we did, I said, hugging her carefully. We have news. Good news, mostly. We sat around the small kitchen table while Harper picked at her lo mein, and we laid out everything that had happened. William's call, the meeting, Richard Brennan's betrayal of Victoria, the deal being offered. Harper listened without speaking, her face unreadable. When we finished, she sat back and stared at the ceiling for a long moment. He knew, she finally said. Daniel knew what his mother was doing. Maybe not the specifics, but he knew something was wrong with the foundation. About 6 months ago, I asked him about some paperwork I'd seen. He got angry, told me to mind my own business, that the foundation was his mother's domain. She looked at us, tears starting to fall again. He chose her. Every time he chose her. Even when he knew something was wrong, even when she hurt me, he chose her. I know, I said softly. So what do you want to do? We can push for full public prosecution, make this the scandal of the decade. Or we can take William's deal, ensure Victoria goes to prison but keep it quieter. Harper wiped her eyes. What happens to the foundation if this goes public? James answered. It would probably collapse. Donors would pull out, investigations would freeze everything. The legitimate programs it runs would lose funding. How many kids does it help? Harper asked. The real programs, not Victoria's fake ones? According to the records Marcus found, about 2,000 children a year receive real scholarships and educational support, James said. Harper closed her eyes. I could see her thinking, weighing her desire for justice against the harm that would come to innocent children. My parents came to this country with nothing, she said quietly. They worked themselves to exhaustion so I could have opportunities. They believed in education, believed it was the way forward for our family. She opened her eyes and looked at me. I can't destroy educational opportunities for 2,000 kids just to see my mother-in-law's face on the news. That's not who we are. That's not who Mom and Dad raised us to be. I felt pride swell in my chest. Even after everything she'd been through, Harper was still thinking of others. So we take the deal, she continued, her voice growing stronger. But with conditions. Victoria goes to prison, no possibility of parole. Daniel divorces me, signs away any claim to any children I might have in the future. And the foundation gets audited, cleaned up, put under new management that actually cares about helping kids. Done, James said. I'll make sure all of that's in writing. Harper looked down at her cast, at the bruises still visible on her arms. And one more thing. I want to talk to Victoria. Face to face, before she goes to prison. Harper, that's not, I started. I need to, she interrupted. I need her to know that she didn't break me. That she tried to throw me away like I was nothing. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. 3 days later, we gathered in a private conference room at William Ashford's attorney's office. Downtown San Francisco, 30th floor, with views of the bay that were meant to impress. But none of us cared about the view. William sat at the head of the table, his lawyer beside him. James and I flanked Harper, who sat straight despite her injuries, her cast resting on the table. Lucy Phillips was there too, as a witness. And at the far end of the table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, sat Victoria Ashford. She'd aged in the past week. Her perfect hair had gray roots showing. Her expensive clothes hung on her a bit looser, as if she'd lost weight from stress. But her eyes were still cold, still calculating. "This is unnecessary," she said, her voice clipped. "We have an agreement. I don't see why we need this theatrical confrontation. Your victim asked for it," William's lawyer said firmly. "As part of the settlement, Mrs. Harper Ashford has the right to address you directly." Victoria's lip curled at the word victim, but she said nothing more. Harper cleared her throat. I reached over and squeezed her hand for support. She squeezed back, then began to speak. "When I married Daniel, I thought I was joining a family. I thought you would be my mother-in-law, someone I could respect and learn from. I tried so hard to make you accept me." Victoria stared at the table, refusing to meet Harper's eyes. "I changed how I dressed, how I talked, tried to fit into your world. But it was never enough, was it? Because I wasn't enough. Not because of anything I did, but because of who I am. Where I came from. This is pointless," Victoria started. "No," Harper's voice cut through, stronger now. "You don't get to speak yet. You pushed me down a flight of marble stairs. You left me there to die. The least you can do is listen." Victoria's mouth snapped shut. "I used to be afraid of you," Harper continued. "Afraid of your disapproval, afraid I wasn't good enough for your family. But you know what I learned while I was lying in that hospital bed?" She leaned forward, forcing Victoria to look at her. "I learned that you were the one who wasn't good enough. Not me. You, with all your money and your old family name and your social connections. You're a thief and a murderer. You stole from children who needed help. You hurt women who got close to your son because you couldn't control them. You're not superior to me, Victoria. You're pathetic." Victoria's face flushed red, but her lawyer put a hand on her arm, keeping her silent. "I want you to know," Harper said, her voice softening slightly, "that I'm not going to let what you did define me. I'm not going to be your victim for the rest of my life. I'm going to heal, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to be happy. And you're going to sit in a prison cell, thinking about how you threw everything away because you couldn't stand the idea of someone like me being part of your family." She sat back, and I saw tears in her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of finally saying everything she'd been holding inside. "That's all I wanted to say. You can speak now if you want." For a long moment, Victoria said nothing. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. "You think you've won," she said, looking at Harper with contempt. "You think this is some kind of victory. But you've destroyed this family. Daniel will never forgive you. The Ashford name will be tainted forever because of your actions." "My actions?" Harper's eyebrows rose. "I fell down stairs that you pushed me down. I discovered embezzlement that you committed. What exactly are my actions in this?" "You should have stayed quiet," Victoria hissed, all pretense of civility gone. "You should have known your place. But no, you had to pry, had to stick your nose where it didn't belong. This is your fault." William stood up abruptly. "Enough, Victoria. Sign the papers. Accept your consequences with whatever dignity you have left." "Dignity?" Victoria turned on her husband. "Don't talk to me about dignity. You, who spent 40 years building an empire while I raised your son alone, managed your household, made you look good to all your business partners. And now you're throwing me away for her." She pointed at Harper. "I'm throwing you away," William said coldly, "because you're a criminal. Because you stole $12 million. Because you tried to kill your daughter-in-law. Because you've been lying to me for years. This has nothing to do with Harper and everything to do with you. He slid a document across the table. Sign it. The plea agreement. 20 years in federal prison, no parole. The foundation's money gets returned, what's left of it. You forfeit all assets except a basic monthly allowance for prison necessities. Victoria stared at the papers like they were a snake. And if I refuse? If I fight this in court? Then we release everything publicly, James said, speaking for the first time. The security footage goes to every news station in California. The financial records become public. And you'll get 30 years instead of 20, plus lose everything in legal fees. Your choice. Victoria picked up the pen with shaking hands. For a moment, I thought she might throw it. But then, slowly, she signed her name on each page. The sound of pen on paper seemed to echo in the quiet room. There, she said, throwing the pen down. Satisfied? No, Harper said quietly. But it's enough. We left the building together, Harper, James, and me. The afternoon sun was bright after the dark conference room. Harper tilted her face up to it, breathing deeply. How do you feel? I asked. Lighter, she said after a moment. Like I've been carrying this weight for so long, and now it's gone. Not all of it, but enough that I can breathe again. We walked to a nearby park and sat on a bench. People passed by, living their normal lives, unaware that justice had just been served in a quiet conference room a few blocks away. What about Daniel? I asked. Have you heard from him? Harper nodded. He sent me an email last night. Said he was sorry, that he should have believed me, that he wants to try to work things out. And I told him no. That ship has sailed. He had a choice between me and his mother, and he chose her. I can forgive that maybe eventually, but I can't forget it. And I can't build a life with someone who won't stand up for me. I'm proud of you, I said, meaning it completely. Harper leaned her head on my shoulder. I couldn't have done this without you. Without family. Mom and Dad would be proud of both of us, I think. I thought about our parents, gone now for 5 years. They'd crossed an ocean, worked impossible hours, sacrificed everything for their daughters' futures. They'd taught us to value education, family, integrity. Yeah, I said softly. They would be. James checked his phone. Lucy just texted. Victoria's being processed now. She'll be transferred to federal custody tomorrow. Good, Harper said. And the foundation? William's bringing in new management. Full audit, complete transparency. All the money that can be recovered will go back into legitimate programs. He's even setting up a scholarship specifically for children of immigrants, in your honor. Harper's eyes filled with tears. Really? The Harper Chin Educational Fund, James said. First awards go out next semester. 20 full scholarships. 6 months passed like water flowing downhill, steady and inevitable. Spring arrived in San Francisco, bringing warmth and cherry blossoms to the streets. Harper's physical injuries healed completely. The cast came off, physical therapy restored her strength, and the bruises faded to nothing. But the emotional healing took longer, happened in smaller increments. Therapy helped. Distance helped. And most of all, family helped. She moved into an apartment 3 blocks from mine. Small, sunny, with a view of a neighborhood park. She started freelancing as a financial consultant, her skills in high demand. Clients appreciated her thoroughness, her ethical approach, her refusal to cut corners. Funny how that works, she told me one Saturday morning as we had coffee in her kitchen. I learned what financial fraud looks like from the inside. Now I'm really good at spotting it and preventing it. She'd gained weight back, looked healthy again. But more than that, she looked confident. Strong. Like she'd discovered something about herself she didn't know was there. William called me yesterday, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. The first Harper Chin scholarships are being awarded next week. He wants me to be there for the ceremony. Are you going? I think so. She smiled. Those kids have nothing to do with what Victoria did. They deserve to have their moment celebrated. I reached across the table and took her hand. Mom and Dad would be so proud of you. You took something terrible and turned it into something good. We did, she corrected. I wouldn't have survived this without you, Sarah. Without family standing with me. The doorbell rang. Harper went to answer it and returned with James, carrying a bakery box. Almond cookies from that place in Chinatown you like, he said, setting the box on the table. And I have news. Good news or bad news? Harper asked. Good. Keiko Tanaka, the journalist Daniel dated before you? I tracked her down. She's in New York, doing investigative reporting for the Times. Did you talk to her? I asked. James nodded. She was hesitant at first, but when I explained what happened to Harper, she opened up. Victoria did assault her 3 years ago. Threatened her family if she didn't leave Daniel alone. Keiko was young, scared, so she ran. But she's been waiting for the chance to tell her story. She's writing an article, James continued. Not about the assault specifically, but about patterns of abuse in wealthy families, how power and money let people get away with violence. She wants to interview you, Harper, if you're willing. Harper thought about it, then nodded. Yes. If it helps other people recognize the warning signs, helps them get out before it's too late, then yes. We sat together, the three of us, eating almond cookies and drinking coffee, making plans for the future. This was family. Not perfect, not untouched by pain, but here. Present. Standing together. The scholarship ceremony was held at a beautiful venue in Nob Hill, a historic building with high ceilings and crystal chandeliers. 20 young people, first-generation college students from immigrant families, stood on the stage receiving their awards. Harper sat in the front row beside William Ashford. They weren't friends, exactly, but they'd developed a mutual respect. He'd done what he promised, cleaned up the foundation, divorced Victoria, ensured justice was served. And he genuinely tried to make amends for his blindness, his failure to see what was happening in his own family. Daniel wasn't there. He'd moved to Boston, taken a position at a different company, was reportedly engaged to someone his mother would never meet from prison. Harper received the divorce papers 3 months ago and signed them without hesitation. I watched from the back of the room as each student received their scholarship, their faces glowing with hope and possibility. These were the kids who might have lost this opportunity if Victoria's crimes had destroyed the foundation completely. Instead, they were getting their chance. When the ceremony ended, several of the scholarship recipients approached Harper, wanting to thank her. A young woman named Lily spoke for the group. "We heard about what you went through," Lily said quietly. "About how you could have destroyed this foundation, but chose to protect it instead. Thank you for thinking of us." Harper's eyes filled with tears. "My parents were immigrants too. They worked so hard so I could have opportunities. I couldn't take that away from other families. You all remind me why it matters to stand up for what's right." That evening, Harper, James, and I had dinner at our parents' old restaurant in Chinatown. New owners ran it now, but they'd kept the name, Chen's Garden. The same red lanterns hung in the windows, the same lucky cat waved from the counter. We ordered our parents' favorite dishes and toasted with tea instead of wine. "To Mom and Dad," James said, raising his cup. "To family," Harper added. "To surviving," I finished. "And thriving." As we ate, I thought about the past 6 months. About how close we'd come to losing Harper. About Victoria Ashford, sitting in a federal prison cell, serving time for her crimes. About the 20 students who now had a chance at education because Harper chose justice over revenge. "Sarah," Harper said, pulling me from my thoughts. "What are you thinking about?" "About stories," I said. "How they end and how they begin. 6 months ago, I thought your story was ending. But really, it was just beginning." Harper smiled. "The old Sarah story ended, maybe. The one where I tried to be someone I wasn't, tried to fit into a world that didn't want me. But this new story." She looked around the restaurant, at the neighborhood where we grew up, at her family sitting with her. "This story is better." James raised his cup again. "To new stories, then. And to never forgetting where we come from." We drank our tea, the three of us, in the restaurant our parents built, surrounded by the community that raised us. Outside, the streets of Chinatown bustled with life, red and gold lanterns swaying in the evening breeze. Victoria Ashford had tried to erase Harper, to throw her away like she didn't matter. She'd seen Harper's heritage as a stain, something dirty that needed to be removed. But she was wrong. Harper's heritage was her strength. Our parents' sacrifices, our community's resilience, our family's unbreakable bonds, these weren't weaknesses. They were the foundation that held us up when everything else tried to knock us down. The blood that Victoria despised, the immigrant blood, the Chinese blood, the blood of people who crossed oceans and built new lives with their bare hands, that blood wasn't dirty. That blood was gold. 1 year later, Harper stood in front of a college classroom as a guest lecturer. She was teaching a course on financial ethics, using her experience with the Ashford Foundation as a case study. "The thing about fraud," she told her students, "is that it always leaves a trail. Numbers don't lie, even when people do. Your job as ethical professionals is to follow those trails, to ask uncomfortable questions, to stand up when you see something wrong. A student raised her hand. But what if standing up means risking everything? Your job, your reputation, your safety. Harper thought about Lucy Phillips, who'd risked her career to tell the truth. About Richard Brennan, who'd finally found his conscience. About herself, lying at the bottom of a marble staircase, broken but not defeated. Then you ask yourself what matters more, Harper said quietly. Protecting yourself or protecting what's right. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you have family who stands with you so you don't have to choose alone. After class, Harper walked across campus to meet me for lunch. I was teaching a workshop at the same university, showing students how art could be used for activism and social change. We met in the student union, grabbed sandwiches, and found a bench in the spring sunshine. How'd the lecture go? I asked. Good. The students asked really thoughtful questions. Harper took a bite of her sandwich. One of them told me I inspired her to change majors from business to social work. She wants to help families like ours. That's beautiful, I said. Harper pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. And look at this. William sent it this morning. It was a picture of a classroom in a rebuilt school in a low-income neighborhood. 40 kids, all smiling, all wearing new backpacks filled with supplies. All funded by the restored Ashford Foundation. The Harper Chin Educational Fund did this, Harper said, her voice full of emotion. Something good came from something terrible. We sat in comfortable silence, watching students hurry past to their next classes. Young people from every background, every nationality, all chasing their dreams. Do you ever think about Victoria? I asked. Harper nodded. Sometimes. I used to feel angry, then sad, now mostly just nothing. She made her choices. She's facing the consequences. And I'm here living my life, helping people. I won. You did, I agreed. You absolutely did. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives become doorways to our best selves. Harper's story didn't end on that marble staircase. It transformed there. She learned that family isn't just who shares your blood, but who stands beside you when blood is spilled. She learned that heritage isn't a weakness, but a wellspring of strength. And she learned that justice isn't always loud and dramatic, but sometimes quiet and persistent. Victoria Ashford wanted to erase Harper from her family, to push her out of existence. Instead, she pushed Harper into becoming stronger, braver, more certain of who she was and where she came from. The scholarships continue. 20 new students each year, getting chances they might never have had. Lucy retired with her pension intact and her conscience clear. Richard Brennan served reduced time and now works teaching ethics in corporate training programs. William Ashford runs his businesses with new awareness, new humility. And Harper? Harper teaches, consults, writes, speaks. She helps other victims of domestic violence find their voices. She shows young people from immigrant families that they belong everywhere they choose to be. She wears her heritage like armor now, not a burden. The same blood that Victoria called dirty, Harper calls sacred. The same family history that was supposed to be shameful became her source of pride. Because here's what Victoria never understood. You can't destroy people who know where they come from. You can't break people who remember their ancestors' strength. You can't defeat people who have family standing with them. Harper survived. More than that, she thrived. And every year, 20 more students carry her story forward. Proof that from pain can come purpose, from suffering can come service, and from the worst of humanity can rise the very best. That's Harper's story. A story of survival, of family, of turning pain into purpose. Remember, your heritage is never your weakness. It's your strength. The blood that flows through your veins carries the courage of everyone who came before you. If this story touched you, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories of resilience and hope. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, you are stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and you are never alone when you have family. Thank you for listening. Be kind to each other. Stand up for what's right. And never, ever be ashamed of where you come from. Until next time, take care and stay strong.